Dorks. It is the Turtle Dork back with a new review for the new season of Game of Thrones. This is season 8. It has begun. It is here. We didn't get the title of this episode, did we? I don't know if we got a title, but it was directed by David Nutter. This is episode 1 of season 8. Final season of Game of Thrones. So, unlike the recap and review, I didn't take notes because I really just kind of wanted to dive in and really kind of absorb everything for this episode. So we're going to kind of recall and just give our initial thoughts. We literally just finished watching the episode, and we're going to just kind of review it and give our thoughts about what we thought of this episode. Kind of similar to season 7, I think it was an episode that really dealt more with a lot of character work and especially a lot of reunions. And I don't know, I think some people may look at some of these season premieres from this season and last season, comparing those two, and not saying that there's not a lot going on, but I think for the anticipation for this show, and especially for this final season, I could see some people thinking that this episode may feel a little lackluster to a degree. You think so?
I beg to differ.
Really?
I say there's a whole lot going on.
I think so too. I think character-wise, there's a whole lot going on.
Well, firstly, of note is that this final season premiere did not start with a cold opening.
Yeah.
As seasons past have normally done. They just jump right into it after the opening title sequence, which I would have to remark is pretty cool to see that they've updated it for the current season, and it opens with you go through the hole in the wall, which is a pretty significant incident from the season finale, and it plays a huge part in everything that's happening now and will happen in season 8. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the next portion of it is the camera goes into Winterfell, and if you look at this Winterfell compared to the opening of previous season, like Winterfell was in ruin in season 7 in the opening title sequences. There was like smoke. I never
recalled that.
Yeah, smoke coming up from Winterfell because
it
was taken down, right? Well, in this one, we go into Winterfell. Winterfell looks strong, and then we also go down into the crypt.
The crypts, yeah,
which plays a huge part. At the very least, it plays a huge part
in this episode.
In this particular episode towards the end. So that was the first thing that I noted. But the episode opens with a kid running through the forest. He's making his way. We're in Winterfell. He's making his way to a procession of the Unsullied. So basically, we are introduced to Daenerys and Jon's arrival to Winterfell. And one of the first main characters we see outside of this little boy, well, who's not a main character, but is Arya Stark. She sees Jon arriving. So this is her first time seeing him since season 1.
Yeah.
And she doesn't say anything. Like it's so frustrating. Like she, for whatever reason, I don't know if she was just trying to be respectful, if she just was at a loss for words, or didn't know if it was the right time to say something. But she didn't say anything. But she also gets to see the Hound and also Gendry as well. But like you said, like this episode was a reunion of sorts for several different characters. Sansa is reunited with Tyrion. Later on in the crypt, Sam is reunited with Jon.
And of course, we do get a scene between Arya and the Hound, and with Gendry.
Arya and the Hound, Jon and Bran are reunited. But that just goes to my point in what I was saying in this episode being pretty significant, even if there wasn't a lot of action per se.
Exactly.
But that's the thing, like Game of Thrones to me, I never felt like its strongest suit was its action. And I don't mean that as a slight against any of the action or the battle sequences or anything like that. For me, my favorite part, and I think the strongest qualities of the show, is all of the character, are those scenes with Tyrion and Olenna, or Tyrion and Cersei, or these great dialogue scenes. And this episode had tons of these scenes where I think this, as we were watching it, especially towards the tail end, I was thinking of that. I was thinking, man, all these reunions, all of these establishing of the players and on the board. So it was like you look at the chessboard, all the pieces are being put, and the groundwork is being laid for what is going to be the crux of the conflict of this season, because Jon arriving in Winterfell with Daenerys, Daenerys isn't met with arms wide open and a warm greeting from Sansa. And so going into this season, this episode establishes that not only is Jon going to have to contend with the Night King and this looming threat, but also the unification of all these different lands, but even more importantly, the unification of his family and Daenerys now. So and then on top of that, as we see towards the end of this episode, he is also saddled with the burden of the knowledge of his true lineage, right?
Exactly, yeah, and how that's going to factor in.
So this episode is significant in this aspect in regards to, at the very least, setting up Jon Snow's challenges for the remainder of the season. And so after this episode, then we see how these things that were put on the board, okay, what are his choices in maneuvering these particular situations?
It's setting up a lot of his conflict that he's going to have to deal with, and he'll have to have resolution throughout the next 5 episodes.
But at the same time, it's setting up, in one fell swoop, it's setting up Jon's, Arya's, Dany's, and Sansa's. With just this one situation of all of them, because they're all a part of it. And Sansa, a thing of note is that when we see her now, she is clearly fallen into her role and taken to her role as the Lord of Winterfell. Thinking back to going through the rewatch and previous seasons and in the very beginning, and how she just wanted to be a princess. She just wanted to be a queen. She's a lord. She's making decisions. She's making command decisions, and she's doing it with a stern and just fist, right? And so you can clearly see the experiences that she's had throughout this series, and how it's all culminated into who this person. It's formed and fashioned this particular person, for better or for worse, because she, at the very least, I don't even think that she. I mean, she's just in what she's doing. She is thinking about her family's honor, her family's name. She's thinking about the North, because it's been placed upon her. This responsibility has been placed upon her inadvertently by Jon and him renouncing his kingship, and bending the knee to Dany. So a lot of this shit falls on Sansa, and he was gone. He's been away. She's been the one left to rule over Winterfell. So I feel like all these things placed upon her, she's done what she felt is the best thing to do, or the best choices to make. But also, those choices are guided by her experiences, everything she's learned from Peter, everything she's learned from Tyrion, everything she's learned from what happened to her. Just her experiences and stuff like that. So I don't know, like, it's going to be interesting to see how because in a way, Jon is making his decisions based on the same thing, his experiences and the things that he's learned from the people that he's been coming in contact with, and the experiences and the things that he learned from the situations that he's been in, from the choices that he's made, mistakes that he's made, and trying to learn from those, and following his heart and in regards to Dany, but also trying to continue to be a good person by doing what's best for the North. And so it's informed who he is. So you have all these people informed by their experiences, and Arya and her journey and the things that she's been through. Same thing with Dany. And unfortunately, we're seeing how some of those choices that, like, Dany's having to answer for a lot of the shit that she's done in the previous seasons, and most notably her not really a confrontation, but her admittance to Sam that she's responsible for his father and his brother's death. And I don't know, I'm just curious to see how, moving forward, since these pieces were set into place, like how everyone chooses to move and maneuver on the board now moving forward. Because again, outside of all of this stuff that's been established, like, and how they relate to the interpersonal conflicts, they still got to contend with the Night King and Cersei. So this is just Winterfell shit that's going on right here, right? So there's still other places on the board that they have to maneuver to, but they got to get past these first few moves, and I'm just curious to see how that plays out.
So going to King's Landing, we catch back up with Cersei, Qyburn, and everything going on there. And of course, the Winterfell and everyone up there is under the assumption, and with the conversation that Sansa had with Tyrion, Well, she mentioned something like, "Do you really think that your sister is going to send the Lannister army to the north?" And
well, firstly, what were your thoughts about that reunion and how that played out between? Did you see it going that way between Sansa and Tyrion? Like her reception of him, like seeing him.
Yeah, I would see that going the way that, just from what you were saying, as far as like everything that Sansa has been through and what she desired and wanted from the first few seasons, wanting to be a princess, wanting to be married into royalty with Joffrey and stuff like that, and then seeing slowly how she has changed through the people that she's interacted with like Tyrion, specifically Tyrion, Baelish, Cersei, the people that ultimately were against her, not so much Tyrion, and how that's kind of hardened her and made her more clever and smarter. And she even regards in this particular scene to Tyrion, where she says something to the effect of, at one point I thought you were the cleverest, the most clever man I've ever met. And that doesn't really seem to be the case. Something to that effect that she said, because he believes, or at least Tyrion wants to believe, that Cersei is going to send the Lannister army north, because he feels like now she has something to fight for something to live for. And, even though Sansa hasn't had interactions with Cersei from last season, Sansa knows the type of woman that Cersei is. And actually, when we see Cersei in this episode, Sansa seems to be right in that instance, because we know that she's not going to send the Lannister army north, because when we first see her, Qyburn says something to her to that effect. And
but then we know that last season when Jaime decides to ride out to Winterfell to fight, because he says, because that whole thing with Euron leaving, saying I'm out, that was all just a ploy, because he was going to get the Golden Company, which now you see them coming into port at King's Landing. But I like the reunion between the two of them, because Tyrion was always, he always treated Sansa with respect and was always nice and gentle to her. Yeah. And but they're at two different stages of their lives right now, and like they even remarked, he said, like, to see you as the Lady of Winterfell and to see him as the Hand of the Queen, never would have thought that we would be in this position. And there's a little bit of animosity, because he feels like everything that happened at Joffrey's wedding and how she just left, because they were married, and pretty much left him to go on trial. And she says, well, look, you survived. Yeah. But again, when she left, that was almost against her will. I mean, she was taken by Baelish, to kind of save her. But but that did put Tyrion in a specific type, in a particular situation that left him to be blamed for Joffrey's death. Yeah. I like how all this stuff is calling back to those first few seasons. I mean, season 1 with everything with Jon and Ned and the stuff that Sam was telling him, and of course the way the episode ended, that goes all the way back to episode 1, with Jaime and Bran. The stuff with Joffrey's wedding going back to season 4. Like, I like how all this stuff is calling back to those previous seasons for, the people that, rewarding the people that have been with the show all this time. So I liked it. I liked all that stuff. So but Cersei, King's Landing, Euron, that whole thing, GTD.
Got the draws. I didn't think she was gonna give it up to him like that, though.
I'm kind of disappointed too. I mean, I understand, like, she has her wants and needs too, but like I just kind of felt like she had that great speech. She's like, if you want a whore. She said, if you want a whore, you can buy one. If you want a queen, earn it. Yep. I was like, damn, okay. But then she gonna turn right around and just get a motherfucker pass. Like, well, shit.
I wasn't expecting that. And I thought, because, Cersei knows how to play the game. So I was thinking, okay, does she have something up her sleeve?
Maybe she does, though. Maybe she does, though. Because, I mean, she likes to play the long game.
Yeah.
So maybe there
was something to that.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah, but the thing about Lena Headey and the way she plays that character is like she goes through so many ranges of emotions when the camera stays on her. So when like Euron leaves the room, when Euron leaves the room, she has kind of like this smirk, like there's something underneath it, but then you see sorrow in her face a little bit, and so I don't know. She plays that character in so many different levels, where she's going through so many different emotions within like the same shot. So I don't know like what she's thinking or how she's feeling, but she's definitely, like you say, playing the long game. And there's something else to that. There was something else that happened at Yara, Theon.
Oh yeah.
So let's get into the Iron Islands and the Ironborn. So we speculated a little bit as far as like Theon and what his arc and his story was going to be. Didn't think that they would save Yara this early.
Yeah.
So and we mentioned in our reaction that there may be other plans for Theon. But what do you think about that whole scene, just with the rescue and then like their conversation that they had on the boat?
Well, I felt like that was going to happen at some point this season.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like you just mentioned, I'm surprised that it happened in this particular episode. But again,
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. And I was thinking about this when they announced that it was only going to be 6 episodes. There is so much story that has to happen before the end of this series. So many loose ends that have to be tied up.
Absolutely.
That I was telling myself, like, even though they're going to be, some of the episodes are going to be longer, most of, if not all, the episodes are going to be jam packed with significant things happening, because there's so much stuff that has to happen, right? And this is a perfect example. Before seeing this, obviously, I was imagining that, later on in the season, specifically in regards to Theon, that Theon's going to die. Theon's going to die, because we're always talking about like, well, somebody's going to die this season. Who's going to be? And I was saying Theon's going to die, but he's going to die in a noble way in order to bring honor to his name and be considered Ironborn once again, which is all he wanted to do in life.
Exactly.
And I figure, all right, well, since Yara is held captive, he's gonna go rescue her and maybe get into it with Euron and save her and but get killed that way, and she can tell people, well, he died rescuing me, blah 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 blah. But they didn't play out like that. Euron was busy in Cersei's bed or whatever, and Theon used that opportunity to go and rescue Yara. And something unexpected happened during that conversation afterwards on the boat that you were referencing. Yara made a good point. All right, well, we can go back to the Iron Islands now. There's no one there, so we can take it back over.
Yeah.
Euron is here at King's Landing. He and all of his men are with him, so Iron Islands is empty, is bare for the taking.
And Dany's going to need some. If they need to retreat, they need to go, because the army of the dead won't cross water.
Right.
So they need to go there. Yeah.
So I don't know though. Didn't they? Oh no, I'm thinking of something else. I was gonna say, didn't they walk in the water like?
No. But that was one of the things they mentioned last season. Is the fact that they won't cross water,
right.
And that's
So Yara was like, all right, so. But she looked at Theon. She's like, but you want to go back to Winterfell. You want to go fight for the Starks, don't you? And Theon was like, yes. So she's like, okay, go fight for them. And when she said that, and then she said, what's dead may never die. And he said, what's dead may never die. And then they gave their hug and stuff like that. That was a goodbye speech. That was a goodbye scene. That was her last words. And I don't know, like any other show, any other movie, that scene is the last time that two characters see each other. Like, and so, from my summation, like Theon's gonna go back to fight alongside the Starks, but still falling in line with my theory, earning his respect, right, and making amends for a lot of his past transgressions or whatever. At the very least, in the eyes of the Starks.
Well, yeah,
which I think matters the most to him.
Yeah,
right?
because of he's betrayed them so much in the past. Yeah.
So yeah, so in episode 3, at the Battle of Winterfell, like that. Mark my words, like Theon's going to be one of those casualties. But I feel like he's going to go out in an honorable way.
I think so too. I mean, I think that's the only way. I mean, if he dies, which I think he will in this season, I think it will be in an honorable way because of everything that he's gone through with the betrayal of Robb Stark and everything with his family, and everything he's gone through with Ramsay and the whole Reek thing, like.
And that's for him to die at Winterfell would just be...
Exactly.
It would be fitting.
Where all of that stuff started with him.
Yeah, it'd be fitting.
Trying to take that over. Yeah. So I'm excited to see how that storyline plays out.
But it's good to see him back in his right mind, in a good headspace,
Yeah. I had a bit of a reaction, when we saw, Beric Dondarrion and my man Tormund, when they discovered the body of the boy, and the sign from the Night King, and I know how filmmaking is, I know how they compose shots and stuff like that, and I knew what was coming, but the one thing I say, going to the whole thing we just talked about with Theon. And what we thought was going to end up, how that storyline was going to play out, this show has a good way of subverting our expectations. So, in that moment with Tormund, I didn't know.
That's totally different, though. You really thought Tormund was going to die? There's so many things that are left unresolved with that character. Like, the show doesn't do... Of all the things, the show can subvert expectations, but the show has a way of... If someone says something or if something happens between the characters or whatever, they don't let those things go unaddressed. There's always a payoff to those things, right? And there's still stuff that's been established between Tormund and Brienne. We haven't even seen Brienne. We haven't met back up with her yet in this opening episode, which is one thing
she was in the background.
I was looking forward to.
Right. She was in the background, but she didn't have any scenes.
She didn't have any scenes, and she hasn't had a scene with Tormund yet.
Yeah.
So, and they've purposely established something between those two characters. So for him to die in that moment,
I know,
would have been.
Look, I was in the moment, man. I was into the show, and it was so it just I was, it got me. It got me. I mean, that's what the show intends for us as an audience to have a reaction. I gave them my reaction. Okay, I gave them my reaction.
Yes, you did.
So we talked about everything happening in Winterfell, everything with Sam and the Tarleys, and finding out.
Well, that's scene with because Dany brings Jorah down to meet Sam
because he was the one that saved Jorah, and she wanted to meet him.
Yeah, and she wanted to thank him personally. And that scene starts out great in that firstly she's thankful and she's saying that there's got to be a fitting reward for your particular act in regards to maybe having something set up for him at the Citadel when all this is over with.
Because he wanted a pardon for, I guess, some of the books that he took from the Citadel.
Yeah, and then she ends up admitting to him that she's responsible for the death of his father and his brother.
Yeah, because she finds out that he's a Tarley because he mentioned something about the sword that he took from his father. And he mentioned, so she finds out that he is the son of Randall Tarley, who she burned.
Yeah, and just the way that Sam played that scene.
Great acting.
The actor that plays Sam, just the way his reaction to the news. That shit was heartbreaking, man.
It was. I think that was probably the most heartbreaking scene in this episode. And then fast forwarding that to the scene where he goes down to meet Jon in the crypts. Because he runs into Bran, and Bran tells him, like, look, you have to be the one to tell him because it's time for him to know. And he tries to get Bran to do it because he's like, you're his brother. He's like,
technically I'm not.
I'm not. So he trusts you the most, which he does. I mean, Sam and Jon have a really trustworthy relationship. So Bran puts it on Sam to gives him that responsibility to tell him.
That was hard though. Like right after he just got this news about and Bran, you knew that shit too. You the 3-eyed Raven. You know he just got that bad news. I know. And you ain't give him no time to deal with that shit. He was like, all right. On top of that, go tell your man.
but I like how that dovetails into the scene with John, him coming from just learning about what Dany did to his family, because he questions John about that. He was like, look, would you have done the same thing? If he's like, you spared men, you spared the wildlings and brought them across the wall to the north. It's like, would you have done the same thing? And I like that Sam has that kind of moment with John, because he feels some kind of way, even though he didn't have the best relationship with his father, but that's still his father, and then how that goes into John saying, like, look, but I'm not a king, I'm not the king. It's not anything I wanted. And I love that reaction. He's like, I'm not talking, when Sam says, I'm not talking about being the bloody king of the north. I'm talking about being the king of the seven kingdoms.
Yeah.
And how that leads into him letting him know. But just that whole interaction and the anger and the frustration that Sam has in that moment, coming from what he just learned about his father, to that reveal that he gives to John. I just thought that whole sequence was played out beautifully, especially for that character of Sam. Final scene, I mentioned it a little bit, but what we end on with Bran and Jaime. We talked about this leading up to this final episode, the final season, as far as like talked about reunion, and we mentioned that, oh man, what's gonna happen when Jaime runs back in with Bran, who he knocked off the tower. But then I remember you remarked that Bran's been through so much that he's not even technically Bran anymore.
Yeah.
And so, but there's still that look between the two of them that calls back to the very first episode.
Well, really, it's the look from Jaime, because Bran looked at Jaime like he looked at everybody this entire episode. Yeah, Bran is. If you ask me, Bran is gone. His face is there. It's just a husk of who that dude used to be. That dude is gone. Like right now, you can't tell what's going on behind those dark eyes, man. Like that dude is on another. He's left Earth. He's somewhere else, man. Jamie's like,
he's in a Night King.
he really is. Jamie's sitting there worried about, does he remember? Jamie's all feeling guilty. Bran, meantime, is probably like, who the fuck is this dude? I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, dude, but you know what? Bran probably has that understanding of, that thing that we talked about, like offline. All this stuff happened. I'm able to do what I do, know what I know, because you pushed me out that goddamn window. Yeah. So we cool. Meanwhile, Jaime, like, oh shit.
I know. It's like, I'm so sorry. It's like, look, it's fine. It's okay.
I'm good, bro.
It's like, it's okay. I'm good.
I'm good. I had a happy life.
So that's episode 1 of the final season, season 8. Again, like we said, I think a very strong episode, character-wise, reunion-wise, the things that we get to see with all of these characters coming back together, and setting up, like you say, putting the pieces on the chessboard and setting up a lot of the inner conflicts.
Ooh, because Dany and Sansa this season?
Yeah, Dany and Sansa, just the way that, the way they have these little looks that they have with each other, how that's going to play out. Now that Jon knows his true lineage, what's going to happen with Sam moving forward now, as far as the relationship that he has with Jon and with Dany now, because everybody's at Winterfell. Tyrion, how all that stuff is going to play out.
Even Sansa and Jon's relationship is in danger of changing, because if she finds out the truth, because she's already at odds with Jon's decisions, while thinking that he's her brother.
Exactly, and that's another point of contention I'm eager to see, because that's something I thought about prior to this episode, is how is Sansa and Arya, probably more so Sansa, how are they going to respond to finding out that Jon is a Targaryen? And I don't know if that's going to go over well for Sansa, because we definitely know how much Arya and Jon, and that's something we didn't talk about with their reunion and seeing Needle and everything like that. But just, I think a really, really strong episode, and a good episode to set everything else up for what's coming in the next 5 episodes. So yeah, I mean, I guess those are our initial thoughts for this opening episode. 1 down, 5 to go. This is it, man. Anyway, Let us know what you thought of the season premiere of episode 1, season 8, final season. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. Remember to rate, like, subscribe, and share. And check out our other dorks at MouthDork, at the I do it all the time. All the freaking time. At MouthDork, at WB Dash, at Sidewalk Siren. This is the Disco Dork. I am the Turtle Dork. And with that, we're out.